Welcome to the Angling Wisdom Podcast, the freshwater fishing podcast for multi-species anglers.
I've known Patrick for quite a few years, and there are a lot of people out there. It's an ego-driven industry. It's all about them. To find somebody that really wants to go find anglers for all different species, to bring them in, to give everybody a voice. This is the difference between what Patrick's doing and a lot of other shows. Is there's only a special few out there.
I have a very special guest all the way from Wapiti, Wyoming.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jim Zumbo. It's nice to actually spend 2.5 days fishing.
With a master angler like you, are you kidding me? This is a real treat.
Get ready for the culmination of angling wisdom and fun. I'm your host, Patrick Edwards, and this is the Angling Wisdom Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Angling Wisdom. I'm your host, Patrick Edwards, and I wanted to talk to you today about some lure options that you should have in your spring tackle to use to catch trout, walleye, crappie, bass, all those things this spring. PK Lures offers a wide range of options that I think are pretty fantastic. I've been involved with them for many, many years, so it's no surprise. Wanted to do a show to highlight some of my favorites. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a few of those. I'm going to talk about how I fish them. You can try lots of different ways to use them, and drop in the comments how you like to use your PK spoons or rattle baits or Spin A Jigs or whatever it is that you're using. So let's start here. In the springtime, one of my go-tos for walleye is this guy right here. This is the PK Ridge Rattler, and this is a rattle bait that is fantastic because it's super heavy. You can cast it a mile. Well, not quite literally a mile, but you can cast it really, really far. It works really well for trout and for walleye. The last few years, what I've done is when the walleyes are coming up to start spawning and coming into those haunts, I will be fishing from shore. I'll cast this out as far as I can. I let it sink down a little ways, about 4 or 5 counts, and then I reel it back nice and steady. The other thing that I've been able to do with this particular lure here, here's another color that I like, is cast it out, rip it up through the water column, let it sink. A lot of times what will happen is you'll rip it up in the water column, and as it's coming down, the walleye will hit it. You'll notice some slack in your line. You can set the hook. But a lot of times you can do it just on a straight retrieve, and they'll hammer it as you bring it back to shore. Fishing from a boat, another way that I've liked to fish these is just straight underneath the boat. And what you can do is you can rip them vertically. You can let them sit, especially if it's like a sandy bottom and you're not worried about getting hung up. You can drop it on the bottom in the sand, rip it out of the sand, and let it drop back down. These lures are very versatile. They work great. You can cover a lot of water with them. Like I said, just because of the castability, you can cast it super far along a shoreline, even kind of parallel, which is another great way to do it, especially in low light for walleye. Cast about 20 feet out and just work it kind of parallel to the shoreline that you're working on. These things are super fantastic for that. I've caught a lot of different species on these. Surprisingly, even carp will hit these, which is kind of funny. And surprising at times. You're like, man, I've got a huge walleye on it. It turns out to be a big fat carp. But these lures are fantastic for those applications. Trout really like this color with the pink head. Walleye do as well. This one works year round for trout. And I've had a lot of success with these. And they've come out with some smaller sizes now. So you can fish those smaller sizes as well through the ice. These work really well through the ice too.
For me, fishing isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. And every angler deserves a rod as unique as their journey. That's where TB Custom Rods comes in. Handcrafted custom fishing rods built to your exact specifications. Perfectly balanced and tailored to your style. Work with Trapper and choose your design, select your components, and feel the difference of a rod made just for you. Visit tbcustomrods.com to get started on your custom rod today.
But I would say that's a really good option to use at the beginning of spring. As soon as the ice comes off, walleye and trout will be active. They'll be cruising the shorelines. It's a fantastic way to catch them. Here's another one that I like to do. This one's not going to surprise anybody. This is the classic PK spoon. What I like about this is that in the springtime, you can do a method which is called snap jigging. Snap jigging is exactly how it sounds. You drag this behind the boat. I usually put like a little tiny piece of night crawler or something off the back just for scent. But I'll put this back behind the boat. I'll be moving about 0.5 to 0.8 miles an hour. And what I'll do is I'll drop it down onto the bottom. And again, it's important to have like a sandy bottom, something you're not going to get snagged on. That's critical. But you drop it down, get it all the way to the bottom, and you want an angle about like this for your line. And what you do is you just snap your rod tip and let it settle back. Snap your rod tip, let it settle back. Snap your rod tip, let it settle back. And the cool part about that is you don't have to do it right on the bottom. You can do it mid part of the water column, even up a little bit higher if you want to go a little bit faster. But what'll happen is this guy will come up and it'll dart back. It'll come up and it'll dart back, and it's very erratic. Trout, especially in the springtime, will just absolutely hammer these things. I'll try to drop a picture in here. It can be really, really fun. And it's a fish catching method. I mean, it works really, really well. I will give you some advice. I would use a little bit slower action rod, and also the other thing is use monofilament. The reason I say that is with braid, you just tend to rip the hook right out of their mouth because you're ripping and they're hitting it pretty hard. And if you're not careful, it'll just rip right out of their mouth. So if you have a little bit slower action rod, so it has a little more bend to it, and then also if you have that monofilament that gives it a little bit more stretch, you can increase your chances of actually landing the fish on this, which is the whole point. So some of the colors that I like to use in this in the springtime, the metallic colors, so the nickel, the copper, and the gold are all great. Another color that I've had really good success on has been the crawdad color. So there's a glow crawfish color and then just a regular crawfish color. Those seem to work pretty well, especially if you're fishing right off the bottom. And then fire tiger glow works really, really well for this in the snap jigging application. And the other part about snap jigging that's nice is it doesn't take a lot of skill. You're really just ripping and setting back, ripping and setting back. And when that 22, 23-inch rainbow trout hits, you'll definitely know. And that 24-inch walleye hits, you'll definitely know. So it's a lot of fun. It's an easy way to fish. Another thing that you can do with these in the springtime is obviously just troll them behind the boat. That's something a lot of people do. They'll cast them out way back behind the boat, put like a little piece of crawler on them, and it'll just do this back behind the boat. And those trout that are cruising, walleyes, they'll pick up on it and they'll hit it. But this is a highly underutilized lure for that time of year, in my opinion. Not enough people fish these in the springtime. A lot of people think of it as a fall and winter bait, but really it's great in the spring. It's great in the summer as well. You should always have jigging spoons. I'll just say that. You should always, always have jigging spoons.
Whether you're deep in the backcountry or gearing up for your next hunt, Kifaru has your back, quite literally. As someone who has broken their back twice, I can speak to the unparalleled performance of the Kifaru packs and frames. From their industry-leading backpacks built for extreme durability to ultralight shelters that withstand the punishing elements, Kifaru gear is engineered for those who demand the best. Customizable, rugged, and made right here in the USA, Kifaru is trusted by hunters, hikers, and explorers who refuse to compromise. Visit Kifaru.net and discover why Kifaru is the ultimate name in outdoor adventure.
And then the third one, this one's actually a lot of fun, and it's a pretty versatile lure, and it hasn't been out for a super long time, but Pat O'Grady came up with this. This is called a Spin A Jig. So I'm going to hold this up for you so you can see. So there's a blade up on top, and it spins really easily through the water. So if you're moving it even a little bit, it'll spin. And you have almost like your own swivel here. And then you got a split ring, and you can change out the jig heads to whatever you want. So if you are fishing super deep, you'd want a lot bigger one than I'm showing you here, but these are fantastic because of their versatility. So I'm going to talk about why they're so versatile. What I like about the Spin A Jig, and I'll put some pictures in here as I talk, but I've caught lots of walleyes, my biggest sauger, lots of trout on this application because you get the spin and the flash of a spinner, but you also get the action and are able to work it like a jig because it's a jig and a spinner all in one. You see some of these companies, they'll have the spinner down below the jig head. I actually think it's better to have it up above and up on top. And the reason that I think that that's an advantage is the fish are going to key in kind of on this at first from a distance. So this blade that's spinning through the water, but then they're going to probably be coming up from underneath and they're going to key in on that jig head and that bait, whatever trailer you put on it. So like this one I have for crappies. So this one's got a power minnow on it. The power minnow is a great one and it doesn't affect the action. It's no big deal, but they'll see that and they'll hit that larger profile. I think sometimes with this underspin type technology, those are good, but I just feel like I get more hookups with these, and maybe it's different for you. Talk about it in the comments if you want, however it works for you. But I really like the versatility of the Spin A Jig. Another thing about it is you can buy the micros, which is this guy for like crappie, different fish like that, and then you can get the regular size, which I use for walleye and sauger.
Fellow anglers, it's time to up your game with PK Lures, crafted to help you catch the fish of your dreams. Whether it's the classic PK spoon, the flutterfish, or the reliable PK Ridgeline crankbait, PK Lures has the perfect lure for any fishing scenario. No matter if you're fishing on the ice or in open water, PK Lures has a wide range of lure options to help you catch walleye, trout, panfish, and more. These aren't just lures, they're proven performers. Designed by master angler Pat O'Grady and tested by some of the best anglers in the world, they are trusted for results. From the hard water to open lakes and rivers, PK Lures delivers. Find your perfect lure today at pklure.com and use the code WISDOM for 20% off of your order.
The walleye and sauger, man, they just absolutely annihilate it. And what's kind of fun about it is there are times where you can just cast this back behind the boat. So you're trolling, just put a piece of crawler on there, cast it behind the boat. You'll be amazed at the amount of trout and walleye that you pick up just dragging this behind the boat. It's not hard to do, super simple. You can get different colors. So they have gold, nickel, and copper. This one's a copper. So you can buy the color that makes the most sense for the water clarity and the type of water that you're fishing. Again, you can change out. If you have split ring pliers, you just change out the jig head. So this one is like a 16th ounce. If you wanted to put on a 1/4 ounce and fish deeper water, throw on a 1/4 ounce and fish deeper water. It's really, really easy to use and quite effective. Like I said, I caught my biggest sauger on one of these, and I'll try to put a picture in there, but that thing ate the entire bait setup. Like, it was crazy. Just swallowed the whole thing. And yeah, I think this is one of the more underrated jigging / spinning applications on the market. If you like panfish, if you like walleye, you like trout, this is a must have in your tackle box because you can tip it with anything that you want and just kind of use it for the application that you're working in. There is one downside, and only one that I can really think of, and that's sometimes when you're pulling this through the water, it can catch some weeds. So it's not real awesome if you're in a really, really weedy area, but most spinners are not good in a weedy area, and most jigs aren't either. So it's not like it's unique to this, but just know if you're fishing a lot of weed cover, you're probably going to have quite a bit of gunk on this, just because it will pick that up with this spinner up at the top. But man, you talk about open water fishing off of rocks, cliffs, a lot of the western reservoir type stuff that we have here in Wyoming. It's a fantastic application. And man, I've caught a lot of fish on these over the last few years, and it's sure been a pleasure being able to prototype this back in the day before it came out, and then now use it on a regular basis and see other people use it and do really, really well. So those are 3 lure options. Again, this PK Ridge Rattler bait is a fantastic one. I just about hooked myself. Sticky hooks. But this is a fantastic bait. Have a few of these in your box. Go after walleye, trout, bass, perch, crappies, pretty much anything hits them. The PK spoon, the classic, and they also have rattle spoons that work really well for the snap jigging application as well. You can get all of these and the Spin A Jig here at pklure.com. And while you're there, if you use the code WISDOM, you get 20% off. So I'd encourage you to do that. That also lets Kurt and the guys know that you paid attention and you watched my show. And so that helps us as one of the folks that partners with them and helps us with our sponsorships. These things are amazing. I'll put some pictures in throughout this episode so you can just see how well these have worked for me in the past. And I hope you get out on the water, give it a shot, and catch a bunch of fish this spring. So have fun out on the water.
Angling Wisdom has been brought to you by TB Custom Rods, Kufaru, and PK Lures. Don't forget to subscribe to Angling Wisdom on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts so you don't miss any of our new episodes. Also go to anglingwisdom.com for more fishing content. Until next time, I'll see you out on the water.